You probably apply to American universities or foreign universities once in your life. So essentially, you're doing it for the first time, and if you do it right, you're doing it for the last time. There is always a sense of uncertainty, a little bit of doubt, you don't have too much information, and there are always people who are going to prey on that. Right from the time that you are applying to universities to the time that you are at the university, and after that, when you're looking for a job, there are scams all around you in foreign countries as well. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the most frequently occurring scams with specific examples which you should be wary of. And I'm also going to tell you how you can avoid them. So stay tuned. Now, people are trying to trick you right from the time you start thinking about applying to colleges and while you're applying as well. The scam that I'm going to talk to you about is pretty funny, but it's also serious because your future is at stake, right? I'm talking about the University of Farmington scam that happened in 2019. Let me tell you the story about this. The University of Farmington in Michigan was an American university which seemingly had all of its accreditations on board. Students who were applying also kept applying to it for a few years, and there were a group of 6 to 7 individuals who were acting as consultants or almost brokers, for the lack of a better word, trying to get you into these universities. Now, I'm just talking about the University of Farmington example, even though there are a dime a dozen such universities. In fact, there's a list of blacklisted universities you should be aware of, which we can provide to you if you comment below, so you can take the names of these universities. But the Farmington case was especially funny because of what happened afterwards. Hundreds of students were enrolling in this university, which was just a commercial building. There were no professors to speak of. There were no classes being conducted. All students were doing were joining the university, getting the CPT, and they were doing jobs on campus. The immigration services in the US arrested these agents who were supplying students to these universities and arrested all of them. They also raided the university and went on to capture all of the students who were studying there, and they asked them questions about what subjects they were studying and which professors were teaching them courses. Of course, none of the students were able to answer. These students, of course, were promptly deported and probably will not be allowed to enter the US again. But this is not the funniest part of this entire incident. What I'm going to tell you is going to blow your mind. The University of Farmington in Michigan was actually set up by the immigration services in the US as an undercover operation. And they let it run for a few years to see who is going to become agents for these universities and recruit students. They almost viewed it as a trafficking scam. So unknowingly, this was an undercover operation by the US government, which Indians in the US were supplying students to. And even the students who were joining in, after they joined in, were well aware about what was happening. But before they applied, they had no idea that this was a sham. This is just one example that happened in 2019. I can tell you with confidence that there are hundreds of such universities still existing in the US, which could see you get into a lot of trouble in the future. It's best to avoid them. Now, how do you escape this? Because it's so tricky with the hundreds and thousands of universities in the US at this point in time. Well, first of all, check all the accreditations, check the campus photos, and always get advice from somebody who understands the US ecosystem. Don't blindly go by universities that are suggested by local consultancies, because there is something sketchy in all of these operations. With the right information and advice at the right time, you can avoid these scams. And if you want a WhatsApp community where you can have these discussions and have well-informed people looking out for you, you can certainly join our WhatsApp groups, the links to which are in the description. Now, when you enter a country, so after this alarming piece of news, we need a breather with some good news. We are hosting a webinar where we'll be discussing how you can shortlist universities and avoid the bad ones and ensure that you're at places that will get you a great job after you graduate. You can join this webinar for free. The date and time will be displayed on the screen, and you can sign up using the link in the description. We hope to see you all there. Now, when you enter a country and you're also uncertain and having several doubts about how you're going to tackle the entire environment, there are scamsters looking at you again. The second scam is actually mentioned on a lot of university websites. It is the IRS, or the Revenue Services scam. Students, once they land on campus and take a new number, the local number of course, get calls from people posing as the revenue department, saying that they have to pay a sum or they defaulted on some taxes or some payment, failing which they'll be deported from the country or even arrested. These scams are extremely convincing because even the caller IDs reflect the department's number, and they're smart to put in area codes which resonate with where these departments are located as well. So students are often convinced that this is true. Based on the guidelines given by universities, you have to understand that the IRS never makes threatening calls or in fact any calls directly to citizens, let alone foreign students. So the moment you get a call like this, do not engage in conversation because they tend to get more aggressive and threatening and they'll pull you into the scam. When you get a call, disconnect immediately and report it to the university officials immediately. They're always around to help you out. Don't even bother if they tell you not to inform the university, because they can convince you while you're on that call. The idea is to never engage in conversation and just report these calls to the university. They will take care of you. Now, the third scam talks about the next part of your journey, when you finished with university and then you're looking for a job. Most of you applying to US universities will obviously be looking for STEM designated degrees, which give you a 3-year OPT. Now, there are several consultancies out there that just file OPTs for you in exchange for you paying them money. And honestly, you're not doing any work there. They just put you on consultancy projects. This has been happening for decades now. So what's the problem, you might ask? Well, the authorities are getting wiser to it. And in fact, in 2024, this came to light. A lot of students who had an OPT job in hand for a year, a couple of years, in fact, some of them through this OPT route even had H1Bs. They came back home to India for vacation. And when they were going back, they were stopped at immigration and not allowed to enter the country again. The reason being, the immigration services made a list of these consultancies which had authorizations for OPT but were abusing the system. They were charging about $500 to $1,000 to give some sort of coaching, which would be useful for you to get some sort of consulting job which was not permanent. Therefore, you were getting the OPT, but you weren't doing jobs that were relevant to your master's degree, which is a necessary prerequisite for the OPT to be valid. So therefore, even people who thought that this OPT period was legitimate and they were doing some consulting projects and even their H1Bs got picked and they were working for a few years, because this blacklisting happened, which can happen at any point in time, they were prevented from re-entering the country. So it's important that you get into legitimate companies to activate your OPT and not go into random job consultancies, because you never know when this blacklisting process can happen. It's all a matter of luck and you don't want to leave it to that. So I hope that you are aware of the precautions that you have to take and some common scams which keep happening year after year. We are always around to give you this information to protect you when you're making this all important decision and this challenging journey. Of course, if you want to be backed by a community that always covers these scams and makes sure that you're well informed, you can join all of our WhatsApp groups where my team will be advising you, and you can also network with a bunch of candidates who are applying to these programs who have information from various sources. So stay protected, join our WhatsApp group, and stay away from nonsensical information.